What's poppin', everybody? Welcome to Pop by Culture, and we are back for another installment of our comic book club. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite shows to do each month. I always look forward to it, and I always look forward to getting this panel of people here. Tonight we have a column of handsome guys here. But as always, we're gonna come to you. We're gonna nerd out. We're gonna talk about some comic books. And tonight we are discussing none other than Disney Plus's Daredevil Born Again. Aren't you guys doing so? Woo! No, we are going to talk about the comic book that inspired in name only. We'll see. But before we get into that, let me first say hello to the panel. So directly below me, I have Sammy 3-Pete. What's up, brother? How are you?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me back on. You just picked some bangers for this show to talk about, man. I'm always thrilled.
I tried, man. It was I when I first kicked the show off, had an idea of what I wanted to do, and then I started doing stuff, and I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know if this is really. I was listening to other people's advice and not necessarily doing what I was passionate about. And then kind of came to terms with that. And I was like, I just want to cover good stuff. And I'm so sick of talking about crappy comics that I just want to talk about some good stuff. So that is essentially how this got started. And there's plenty of good books out there, plenty of fun things to talk about. So why not? And coming in below Sammy, we have my Tism twin, my oh, I better not say that. We're still pretty early in the stream. But we've got Maxfield Von Priestley, the comic crusader himself. Max, how are you, man?
I'm good, dude. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad that I was able to make it here on time. And it's funny, you had said that you wanted to stop reading crappy comics. So what did I do? I invited you onto my show that reviews crappy comics. So
that's okay. I will do it for you. And a few other people, maybe, but I get to balance it out now. It's not just crappy comics. It's crappy comics and good comics.
And these good ones outweigh, because these are, I think, and we'll get to this later, I think these are like staples, right? Comic book club books are like ones that are just evergreen. The comics we read sometimes, and Drew, you can allude to this when you go on Wes's channel on Thinking Critical, some of the comics you read in a week coming out from the big two you forget them like the second you finish reading them. There's no rereadability or any talent there. So it is nice to get a palate cleanser with these comic book club books. So
indeed, it's a nice refresher of why I started loving comics.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure at some point we'll probably have a bad comic that we cover just for the hell of it. I mean, at some point we're gonna have to get to Dark Knight 2, right? Or Dark Knight Returns 2, I should say. But yeah, I mean, regardless, this is a nice segue. And then speaking of good comics, this isn't the only show we do here discussing good comics. So if you look at the very bottom, I've got Heavy D, my main man Drew, who's here with me every freaking Tuesday. And the first Tuesday of each month, we actually cover top 5 comics. So we look back at the previous month and we cover the overall general top 5 comics. That's what Drew discusses. And then I come in and I talk about the top 5 debuts, and we just kind of share those top 5. And often it turns into a top 10 or top 15 because we're getting lucky enough that we're getting more good stuff in recent months. So can't complain. But Drew, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Yeah, I can't wait to discuss this tonight. As much as I love Batman Year One, I love Daredevil Born Again even more. This is one of those staples on the bookshelf. Honestly, I would like to believe that if you are a true Daredevil fan or a true comic book collector or aficionado, you have your bookcase. Born Again in some form or fashion will be there. And for this occasion, I brought out my artisan edition of Daredevil Born Again.
Ooh,
it's the black and whites, the original OA from David Mazzucchelli. Oh, and it's signed by Mr. Frank Miller, right there.
Ooh,
very nice,
very nice.
Special occasion to bust it out.
Indeed. Before we kind of get kicked off into tonight, I will say we currently have 104 people watching. So YouTube is looking a little lonely only over here. We only have 5 people on the YouTube side, but I know, right? We have 99 watching from X. So if you're on the X side, come to YouTube. Get that little thumbs up going, hit that like button, comment so we can see you. Well, I mean, you can comment on X too. Just say hello. We'll say hi back. We don't bite. We might send you our number. I mean, I'm single and desperate, and I think Max is single and desperate. So you never know.
Yeah. My wife is in the chat, but
Hey, I didn't say Sammy was single and desperate. So don't hit Sammy up. Let the poor man has a wife.
Desperate.
Just desperate. I feel that one. But real quick, let's go ahead and say hello to the people that have hopped up in the chat. We have Cajun Corey himself here every week, always here, usually the first guy commenting, but he says evening, and he's coming in showing his love that he is a member for 10 months. Thank you, Corey. I appreciate you not only as a friend, but just I appreciate you being here every week. And for that 10 months, let's go with this.
I'll show you the tool that's most important to our survival, but fair warning, it's my penis.
Woo. I can never get enough of that. We also have Mrs. 3. So this is Sammy's wife coming in, sending a little wave. Hello, Sammy's wife. Nice to see you here. And we've got Kaiser Jose coming in with "What's up, boys?" And he put, Josh sent me numerous DMs. I don't know what you're talking about.
Slide into those DMs.
Slippy slide.
I played baseball just so I could learn how to slide into some DMs. How about that? We've got Zax in the house coming in with the Joshy Fire. Hello, Zax. How are you? Nice to see you here. And I'm sure we'll have more people joining us as the night goes on. We are now up to 126 people viewing.
Woo.
YouTube is up to 9. So we got 4 people slid over from X to YouTube. So keep sliding. Slide, come to the dark side.
We're doing it.
But I know, right? But no, I do appreciate you guys coming in, tuning in, and we're going to go ahead and jump into Daredevil Born Again. So I'm going to kick things off kind of partnering with Drew because I do feel like he's like the perfect guy to go to for this. But I will say that Daredevil Born Again tends to kind of get cited as like the Daredevil book, especially like the Daredevil book that Frank Miller did. But for all intents and purposes, this is essentially his magnum opus. This is kind of how he ends his run. He had a full run that he did prior to this where, I mean, Daredevil as a book was on the chopping block. Like the plan was to cancel it. They kind of threw him on. They got Lanky Frank to come in and do the book. And he just started killing it. And before you knew it, Daredevil was just gaining favor from readers. And he ended up saving the book. So, Drew, I don't know if you want to kind of discuss some of that and kind of give, I guess, a background on Frank and the work he did and just what he managed to make Daredevil go from bottom of the barrel to must reading on a monthly release.
You're 100% right. Jim Shooter takes 100% credit for this because this was all his call and arguably probably one of the greatest calls he ever made. Because like you said, Josh, Daredevil was on the chopping block. It was at a point bi-monthly. They're getting ready to cancel it. They had artists coming in and out. Nothing was sticking. It came to be Daredevil and Black Widow sharing the title, but nothing was happening. And Shooter just decided, take a chance on this guy. So take a chance on this 22-year-old Frank Miller to come in and do the art. And he had Roger McKenzie doing the scripts. And things were okay at first. Sales didn't drastically improve immediately. Frank did not like Roger's scripts. That is on the record. And eventually, Denny O'Neil came on as editor. And Denny sided with Frank. Roger was gone. So Frank became the writer and artist on Daredevil. And it was almost immediately, overnight, sales went like gangbusters. It was like, right around like 168. That's when we started getting we got Elektra, started getting the Hand, Stick, all the memorable stuff, all the true stories that we know from like the Daredevil Netflix TV series. This is where they're all introduced due to Frank, and this really catapulted his career into superstardom. And one thing to remember about Born Again, this came out in 1986. 1986 is arguably the greatest year in comic books. This came out the same year as Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, and what else? What else do we have? Born Again came out that year. Crisis on Infinite Earths, Man of Steel, Mutant Massacre. It's so much. Mouse, the first volume of Mouse came out. So much was happening in 1986. Yes. Yeah. And arguably the greatest year. And if there's one year in comics I'd love to go back to, it is that year. And yeah, it was and this was, I think, the apex of Frank Miller's career. This is the highest he will ever get creatively, in my opinion, sales-wise and critical reception. He still maintained that high for a little bit. It's dwindled over the years, but this was the highest he would ever get in 1986.
Nice. Sammy, Max, are either of you familiar with his run? Is that something you guys have read prior to this, or?
Oh yeah, I own his entire run. It's a seminal run. It is a thing to be desired. It's been a while since I got to read through the whole thing again, but I remember just they started putting out in the trades, and I, and anytime it was available, I was like, no, that's no brainer. That's going in the cart. There's very few. I'd said probably maybe Alan Moore's Swamp Thing run might be a challenger for this, but I completely agree that this is the best, most controlled Frank Miller. It was like his art is peak. And that's the, I'm just talking about in his run there. His writing is awesome. The things that he has introduced have stood the test of time, and like really he saved the character. And also we wouldn't have gotten Ninja Turtles without his.
Yeah. Very true.
Very true. Go ahead, Max.
No, I was about to say something, and then I don't have much to add other than I mean, I agree with everyone. The funny thing is I actually bought the Frank Miller Daredevil omnibus. It's like right behind me. It's in one of these shelves back here, with Gary from Nerdrotic over at San Diego Comic-Con. So
nice.
I was like, yeah. So we were at Comic-Con, and I was like, I don't have that. Can you? How much are you selling that for? And the guy at the booth, gave it to me for a good price. But yeah, no, it's something when you hear about runs that redefine a character, or in this sense, not even redefine him, but like define him. Like this may be the definitive run to actually define the character, because of, as Drew alluded to earlier, like the sales, and just he wasn't doing as great. But no, it's a beautiful run, and it's a really incredible look at what you can do to enhance a character, and it just takes someone who's very talented and a good writer to really make a character stand out. Sometimes you're dealt a bad hand and a bad character, like, I don't know, America Chavez or Miss Marvel. What's her name?
Kamala Khan. Those are beautiful and brave characters.
Yeah,
of course,
and bold
and beautiful. And yes, if you didn't say that already, but yeah, I mean, like maybe those are just
myself in them.
Yeah.
Very rarely do I get
as you should
comic book characters where I was just like, oh my god, this is me.
That's you.
Me.
But then again, someone told me that they're not made for me, so I shouldn't read them. So I don't know. You never know. But no, it is pretty interesting, because it's like, are those characters bad characters, or do they just have bad writers? And Frank Miller kind of puts this to the test with Daredevil and says, you know, he's not doing too well. I'll make sure he does well. You know, I'll write him into a classic character.
Well, and not just that, Max. What you just talked about, to piggyback off that, is that he put Daredevil in a unique position where he put Daredevil in a grim and gritty New York City, and that wasn't really seen in most of the Marvel comics. I mean, you had Electric. I think there's one issue she kills a guy in a porn theater in one issue of Daredevil. But the other important factor at this that Daredevil gave, Frank Miller gave Daredevil, is that he made him a Catholic. That was Frank Miller, and he's on the record. He said, in his opinion, only someone who was a lawyer would dress up as a vigilante at night to get vengeance. You know, only a Catholic would do that.
Catholic lawyer.
Yeah.
Before we dive into Born Again itself, we do have a few comments that I want to highlight real quick. So Mrs. 3 is coming in with a like the video, and I cannot like that comment anymore than I do, because I want you to like the video. Go hit that thumbs up. And then when you do, just imagine I'm like the Pillsbury Doughboy. I give it like, hoo-hoo. And maybe it'll make it better for you. Kaiser Jose is coming in with, I've never read this, but I want to. Should I not watch tonight's episode? Look, we're going to discuss spoilers. So
yeah, we're going to spoil the shit out of this.
Yeah.
If you are like me and you want to kind of experience that journey as the story intends it to, I would say come back and watch. As much as I want you here, Kaiser, come back and watch the replay after you've read it, because I don't want to ruin any of the suspense or kind of, you know, moments in this by discussing them. So, but I do appreciate you being here. And you did have one more comment. So in case you do, never mind. You don't. You're good. You can go if you want, and we will see you next time if you would like. We also have MG coming in with Sup Boys, and then coming right back with a holy shit, look at Max showing up on a weeknight. Who would have known? Maxi Poo.
Only for the best and brightest do I show up. Do I appear? Does my presence appear on a weekday? So
right. Dolan, he also wanted you to know that he got some Unholy Nightmare OTW, so I guess that's original art
on the way. But yes, he did get some original art from me. Yeah. So little story, little segue. He there was a fulfillment issue with his stuff. His order got lost.
Oh no.
Yeah. So he had original art in his order, and not a cheap order. So, but fortunately, thankfully, I still had a cover and some original art pages. I asked, "Hey, would you be interested in any of these? You know, and some copies of the book?" He said, "Absolutely." I showed him what I got. So, I got it packed up, shipped out to UPS in like 10 minutes. To the tracking order, be there Friday. Boom.
Sweet.
Nice.
Heck yeah.
That's Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just gonna say I'm glad he's getting some stuff, and it sucks that his original package kind of got lost in the mailing. Maybe it'll show up in like 3 months. Who knows? But
man, that's the kind of service that you get from old Heavy D over here. You get the quick reaction force, like reflexes. But dang, yeah, no, MG, that's heartbreaking. I'm so sorry to hear that, man. And also for Drew, I mean, yeah, because who knows who's holding on to some original art from Aurelia now at this point.
I know, right?
Like,
yeah.
What is this? So,
but I will say he's got a banger of a cover coming. So yeah,
that's awesome, man.
Nice. We also have Sassy Sasquatch coming in with, hey gays. Sassy, as always, it's nice to see you here, sending you kisses. And Mrs. 3 coming in with 22. I was doing some dumb stuff at that time, not creating epic content. Yeah. You know, it's weird. I feel like I've regressed in life. When I was a teenager, I was super serious, never acted out, was like just completely focused. And now that I'm in my like mid to late 30s, I'm like a moron. So, you know.
Well, what's crazy is that back to that, Frank was like 15 or 16. He would be going and seeking out Neil Adams, showing him his art. Keep going back. He's like, hey, what do you think of my art? Neil would tell him, it sucks. Give up. You're not worth it. You know, and he would just, but he never quit. Frank, he kept persisting. He kept getting better. Neil's like, kept telling him, okay, you're getting a little better. okay, you're getting a little better here. Eventually, yeah, and this is where he's at.
Yeah. Last, before we hop into the actual book for tonight, but we have Zach's coming in with 10 months of membership, and he put, Josh is so excited to cover this again tomorrow. So tomorrow I will be on Zach's channel for What's Good Wednesday, and it's going to be Zach's. We're going to have 32 flavors of Nick Weiser there. I'll be joining as well, and we're going to be discussing this a little bit, discussing the show, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. But it'll be. I'm curious to see what happens after I watch tonight's episodes to see what my thoughts are currently on the show. And then of course on Friday we'll be on Max's channel to do a deep dive into these two latest episodes. So good times. But Zach's, for that 10 months of membership, let's go with this.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Look, anytime I think of Zach's, I think of shoulders. And if I think of shoulders, I think of Colossus. And, you know, it just seems like it just flows.
Natural progression.
I like it. It works.
I like it. Go ahead.
It's funny, between your channel, Josh, of us going over a deep dive of the actual, Born Again comic or comic run, Zach's channel that's going to incorporate both the show and the comic, and you guys are going to talk about that. And then my show on Friday of just talking about episode 4 and 5 and doing a breakdown of that. I think we can successfully say we have enough Daredevil content to last us months at this point in time.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully people are enjoying the Daredevil reviews.
I hope so. I mean, I've had a blast talking about the show on your channel, and
oh boy.
no, it's been fun. And look, we've praised certain things.
Yeah.
We've definitely shit on certain things. I'm looking at you, Leroy. Leroy.
Yeah.
Reparations. But no, it's been fun. So if you want to hear our debaucherous takes on each individual episode, go check out the Comic Crusader and Friday nights we're talking about that. So, but let's get into the book itself. Daredevil Born Again. I'm just going to start off with we've all read this previously, correct?
Yes.
So this is okay, awesome. So we don't have a newbie this week getting introduced to the book. And I guess what I would say is I kind of describe this as the seminal Daredevil book. Do we all feel that this is the kind of the exclamation point to Frank Miller's run? He just kind of here's my run, here's how I'm ending the story. Gonna give it a little socket to you. And when you think of Daredevil, this is okay, his run and Born Again are your must reads.
Yeah, I mean, this there's still a lot of stuff that came before that I might enjoy reading more, but when someone says Frank Miller's Daredevil, Born Again immediately hops in, but I mean, I love Bullseye as a character, and I just so I enjoy reading stuff earlier in the run just because what he did with that character, and again made this BS character that was kind of a throwaway character, one of the craziest narcissists in comic books, but even this too, what he did with Wilson Fisk, I wouldn't want to call the Kingpin kind of a tacky Spider-Man villain, but he was in no way as I want to say as respected until this run. He wasn't obviously he was an earlier Spider-Man villain, but this is immediately, it was holy shit, you don't want to mess with Kingpin, man. Oh, he will ruin your life. This is yeah, but this is great though.
Agreed. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say, I think for me, it's not necessarily the villain that does it. It's the hero's journey that Matt is put on. because like the start of this series, I think, is issue 227, 226, somewhere on there. And from the first page, Matt is being dealt paperwork that is just going to destroy his life. He's being targeted because of the information that we find out later from Karen. And Kingpin is just trying to destroy him. So we see Matt at his ultimate lowest point ever, especially after he, like, I'll say, finds himself at the bottom of a river at some point, you know?
Yeah.
And there is just such a ferocity within him to never give up, even when he's been broken and brutalized and battered. He's got zero money to his name. He's got zero friends. He's got no one to turn to. He's got no home. There is nothing good in his life right now. And the only thing that he can think is never give up, don't give up, and just to continue fighting. And then meets his guardian angel, or his, Mother Teresa, quote unquote, and finds himself,
or the Virgin Mary,
or the Virgin Mary, right? Or yeah, why did I say Mother Teresa? Mother Mary is who I meant. But yeah, no, I think this is a beautiful story of a man who's just been crazed and broken and completely beat down, and yet continues to come back. And that is who Matt is. And that's like all that Matt's dad taught him as well, as a fighter. So to me, that's what really stuck out about this, and why I think this is such a seminal run, because it just defines the character as someone who will continue to fight no matter what. And I think that's pretty inspiring.
Yeah.
I really think one thing that cannot be understated, because it is there, are the Christian symbolisms and the Roman Catholicism messages going on in this, specifically baptism in this. Because specifically, if you get to it, according to John, one's old life, it must come to an end, must die for a new life to begin. This is a story of baptism. I mean, in this story, he dies to be reborn again. It is there. I mean, people can watch this, repeat this, like, no, that's not true. No. The Christian symbolism is all there. I mean, the stories, the first 4 chapters, they're all different parts from Christian symbolism from the Bible. So
they basically going through the stations of the cross.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, when he's rescued, when he's saved, he's pretty much as Jesus, as he's risen, and so and I gotta love it all the more for that, because this type of symbolism you would never see in a Marvel comic today. Never, ever, ever.
No.
Max did kind of allude to how this book starts. Let's go ahead and jump into that. Like, we open this book, and when we get to this point, this is the first time we've seen Karen Page in a good while, and then we see her that she's just drugged out. There's kind of offhanded references about her being a film star, and we don't mean classy film star. We mean other types of corn. We're talking about corn. But yeah, like this is a crazy. And then she's so desperate to get a fix that, like, page 1, she's like, here, I don't have money, but I've got something that's worth way more or more than any money I could ever give you. It's Daredevil. I know his name. And she kind of gives it up. And that's how we start this story, is she gives it up. And we see things kind of spiral from there. But as she gives that up, we learn that kind of Kingpin has kind of put out his feelers to say, like, if anyone ever gets information on Daredevil, I want it. I don't care how absurd it is, how untrustworthy it is. We'll test it. Just send it my way. And
but Josh, the best part is when eventually we see the chain, when Kingpin gets that note, he says, make sure whoever touched this is dead. Just wait for the kill order. I love it.
And he just kind of cleans up that path. But it's something that kind of makes its way here. And then the comic does something which I think is crazy but incredible. Like, it jumps 6 months forward. Like you go from that moment and you fast forward 6 months to kind of, it's one of those things, like we always talk about show don't tell, but this is one of those things. It's like, holy crap. Like this has kind of been the workings in the background for 6 months while Matt's been operating as Daredevil, meeting a new woman, like all the stuff. This has kind of been going on as Kingpin is testing this information before he fully makes a move. And then we kind of get to this point where once he realizes that there's truth here, he just like puts his plan in motion. And one of the things that I really like about this is something that Sammy alluded to earlier. We really get to see how dangerous and how dark Kingpin is, and a lot of it comes with the influence he has, but also just how wide his network is. Because a lot of times we think of Kingpin and we think of New York, but here we get to see, like, no, he's got reaches not only going all the way down into the slums of Mexico, but he's got global reaches in, he's got the IRS, he's in with the government and other, like, just across the board. So real quick, just kind of looking at Karen and where she is in this desperation for a fix, and then how it kind of sparks this spiral that we will see from Matt thanks to Kingpin. What did you guys think about how this kicked off, and what did you think about the state of Karen? And I'll actually jump to Max first.
So Karen's interesting because I actually noticed the art first when we first meet Karen, the way that they were able to do the sunbeams or the light fixtures, or not the light fixtures, but the light through the this kind of seedy the blinds, like it's a disgusting like motel. You can just like smell it, right? I love the art in this, and it really is a kind of an interesting way to start the book is really by starting off with someplace so kind of filthy and kind of downgraded. But then moving on to what you were talking about with Kingpin, I was actually going to ask you guys, man, is this guy one of the most sadistic MFers ever? I mean, he makes sure he wants to put Matt through absolute hell, to where you're even like looking at the pictures of his like just complete mental breakdown, but it's like it's not enough for Kingpin. He wants more. Even at some point in the book, one of his own investors on the board says, sir, we think you're this is a little personal. Like you're getting too invested in this guy. Like, why don't you just like start focusing on other stuff? And he's like, break this guy's legs. You know what I mean? Like, he does not care. He is so focused on Matt that it is the only thing in his life that he wants to do is watch him suffer. Not just go through pain, not just go through, not just kill him, like suffering. It's terrifying that Kingpin is just so meticulously, putting this all in motion. It also makes him to be very smart, which I like that Frank writes him as, is his intimidation comes from his intellect, of course his size, but it's really his connections and his smarts. But
one of the things that I really like about this is if you study CIA and you look into like how they get things done, a lot of people are like, oh, you manipulate people, and a lot of officers and agents within the CIA, they will say, oh, no, it's not manipulation. It's often motivation. And yes, we encourage it. Like we create the scenario for them. But our goal is we know we're most likely going to get somebody to do something if we give them something in return. So it's like, hey, if you do this, I will give you this. So we come with motivation more so than manipulation of do this or I'm going to, kill this person or do that. And it's kind of interesting to watch Kingpin have both of those approaches, because as we go through this book, we see the motivation that he provides to people. And then we also see the manipulation tactics of how he then goes through and kind of just dismantles Matt. Sammy, real quick, because I know when we covered Batman Year One, which was also Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli, I know you weren't crazy about how Selena Kyle gets portrayed in that book. So did you dislike the fact that, we catch up with Karen and now she's just this like total, like strung out floozy?
You know what? It has such a touch of like realness to it. And, especially like when you look at like addiction statistics today, and like people suffering from opioid addiction is the numbers are ridiculous. I just didn't like what they did to Selena, simply just because that's not the way that I imagined Selena Kyle. I always thought her to be a little bit more aristocratic. It was like, by the way, it's your book, do whatever you want with the characters. There's plenty of people who swear by that adaptation, and that's fine. With this, it was much more. This isn't a different adaptation of Karen Page. This is just like to see where she has fallen, and it's heartbreaking, really. So yeah, to answer your question, I do like this. It's hard to watch. It's hard to see that this beloved character has gone into such dire straits like that. But it's also sadly kind of realistic.
Especially during that time period for the 80s, I feel like drugs were really a really big thing during that time period.
Oh yeah,
And
heroin
so
was huge.
yeah, so for her to be kind of going through this, I'm sure there were people reading this book who had either been affected by it themselves, or who maybe had like friends of friends who maybe had something happen to them. So yeah, it was a really bold decision to have Karen do that, because
Completely agree.
yeah, she goes through some crap.
I mean,
To get
think
back
about
to Elis.
like the desperation too. Like, it was like she sold out the man that she loved
Oh,
just for like one more hit.
Well, not just that. You get back to the
Yeah.
the Christian symbolism. She is essentially Judas in this.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
for her 30 pieces of silver, but
Yeah.
much like Christ, Matt eventually forgives her. He forgives her for what she did.
Yeah.
And that takes a big heart, and a Christian heart to do that.
Agreed. So to kind of deep dive into some of the stuff that Kingpin does specifically, because Max, you mentioned like you've got a page where he's just Matt is discovering all of these things, but he realizes he's being audited by the IRS. He finds out that his girlfriend is leaving him. There is a cop who has like a 20-year history of just like completely towing the line and being like the standard of what cops should be, is now coming out saying, he tampered with witnesses. You've got his bank accounts getting frozen. Like it just across the board, everything is just falling apart. And he finds all this at once. And then as this is happening, like clearly he's got this rage here, but you've got Kingpin just kind of, he has his guys watching him from a distance, kind of keeping tabs on him and just documenting the spiral here. And Max, you mentioned this, but they even describe it as a stop motion study of Murdock's deterioration. So it's just completely just winding him down. And then as they're doing this, watching with Matt, they're watching the aggressiveness of Daredevil increase. But Drew, did you like how kind of just swiftly they came in with this and just kind of dropped it on you? Or do you wish you would have had a little bit more time to watch the spiral happen?
No, this I love the pacing, the tone of this. It gets you right into the book. It gives you a reason to keep turning the page, keep going. There's no decompressed storytelling does not exist in these types of stories. It gets right to the damn point, and it's fantastic. I love it all the more for that. And really, I mean, if you think about this, the story ends in, I think it's a 231. The last two chapters, when you get to Nuke and after, like those really aren't part of Born Again. They were added afterwards, which is interesting. But yeah, nothing is wasted. No page, no panel is wasted. And David Mazzucchelli's art is immaculate in this. And I know he gets a lot of love and praise for Rubber Blanket and other indie stuff, but my God, Born Again in year one, they're the triumphs of his career.
Yeah. Again, here we're kind of watching, Matt's spiral. One of the things that we see is just kind of progression of character and just the different phases that people go through emotionally as they go through this stuff. So like you start off and it's this like shock that everything's happening, and then he kind of moves in this desperation of grasping for help, and he's going to whoever he can. He's going to Foggy. He's going to friends that are lawyers and DAs, and he's trying to get it out there. And then he even has someone that we'll talk about more later, but he even has Ben Urich reach out to him. And unfortunately, Matt's kind of too far down in a spiral at that point. But we essentially see Matt just kind of go from this well-to-do, high-off, kind of super successful lawyer down to this just pits of complete depression. And it's interesting to watch a superhero get dismantled, not on the heroic side, but on the human side. It's like, it's the cuteness of Kingpin to where, like, if I'm going to beat this man, I'm going to beat the man, not the figure, and it's kind of like, how do you beat Batman? Maybe go after what's important to Bruce Wayne. Same thing here. How do I beat Matt Murdock?
You take away that support structure. You take away all of
correct
that. And not just support like the support structure in place, but like the different people, but like physical items as well. You take away all of that, you're taking away his whole damn life. That is the Kingpin. And it's just like, fuck, hope this never happens to me.
Yeah.
But as we start kind of moving through the story, Ben, who knows Matt, knows the character that he represents, and just the upstanding guy that he is, as all this news is coming out, he knows that this just isn't right. So immediately he starts asking questions. He starts doing some digging. And the first thing that he does is he kind of goes to the officer that kind of ratted Matt out to be like, yo, what's going on here? And we learn very quickly just yet again how far Kingpin reaches, because, we're in this hospital and there's this, it's a nurse that makes Nurse Ratched look like, Mother Teresa, to go back to Max's comment earlier, but like he makes Nurse Ratched nurse. Yes, she makes Nurse Ratched look like a saint. But she goes after Ben and jacks up his arm, and she breaks his fingers. So she's got this thing like, my employer isn't happy. And I love that they use this, my employer. It goes back to what I love that the show, the original 3 seasons of Daredevil did, especially in that season 1, my employer, my employer, my employer. We don't say his name, keep that anonymity out there. But she kind of mentions, like, every time you mention Matthew Murdock, you shall lose the use of your fingers. So she goes through and breaks his fingers because he's been saying Matt's name. So it's just like this real quick hush order of like, go ahead and if you want to try to get something started, that's fine, but you're going to be met with physical abuse. Drew, what did you think about this scene? And what do you think about the nurse coming in? I mean, it's a very handsome nurse, but just the intimidation tactics and what did you think here? Because I feel like this really comes into play for Ben Urich as a character, because we have Daredevil Born Again, and yes, it's easy to look at Matt's kind of rebirth, and even Karen to a degree, but I think Ben equally has a rebirth in this story.
Oh, you're 100% correct. Yeah, because as starting off with this, Ben is terrified. Ben is just like, okay, no, I am not doing this anymore after this. But like you said, it gets to a point where I don't want to spoil it or anything, but what happens? But Ben even says at that point, like, you know what? Enough of this shit. I'm not going to be afraid anymore. I'm going to do this. I'm going to start talking about this. I'm not going to let this thing scare me. But yeah, I love his arc in this, and like we talked about behind the scenes before we went live, but I love the stuff between him and J. Jonah Jameson. Just talking about the story, it's great stuff.
Max, we discussed that you're single. Do you think you might be reaching out to this nurse to be like, hey, lady, what's up?
I mean, well, with that kind of grip strength, you never know what could happen. So.
You want to wrestle?
Oh no.
Yeah, no, it was she comes back into the book in Ben's life in a very scary way later as well, that we find out. But at first when I read this, I was like, wait, so Kingpin offered or ordered hush orders to anyone who had even touched that note when he's on the boat, he's like, anyone who's touched this letter that says Matt Murdock, kill him, right? So then Urich starts peeping around, starts asking people, what the heck is going on with Matt Murdock? He is the most honest and noble man I know. Why would he be now appearing in court for some odd reason from a cop who's never done anything wrong in his whole 20 years in law enforcement? Something doesn't seem right. So I thought that this large and in charge woman, this strong, empowered female, was going to kill him, right? Because this whole time we were alluding to anyone who talks about Matt Murdock, they're going to die. But she actually just kind of gives him, a little bit of taste of what could happen. So, it was very interesting.
As you mentioned, this isn't the only time we see her. We see her in other scenes later, and it gets darker and more scary each time we see her.
Yeah.
And also more personal, but something that isn't distinctly like just laid out in text here, and I'm glad that it's not, but is the idea that when something like this happens, whether you're Urich or even Matt, and we get to see it especially in Matt coming up, but the paranoia that it creates of you don't know who around you is actually working for King. Like, you were just in the hospital with this officer. This nurse was attending to him. She seemed fine and nice and great. And now, like, you're outside the hospital and she is breaking your fingers. So it's like you never know who is actually, like, you're going to start looking at every single person with suspicion and paranoia. And we really get to see that come into play with Matt in a little bit. But
are we going to talk? Okay, yeah, I want to talk about this because I love this aspect of it.
Oh my God,
yeah,
this
we
is
said
awesome.
Matt. Yeah, we see Matt slowly lose his mind in this, and another contributing factor in this is that we see as the story progresses is that he's not sleeping that well. He's not sleeping, and we know if you don't sleep, you're going to go fucking nuts.
Yeah.
But it gets to a point in this where Matt has officially snapped and lost his mind. And we see this not only was Kingpin done to him, but what his body's doing to him. Everything is failing in his life. He is reaching rock bottom.
And I think, Josh, you had articulated one of the words that I think is a very, very good depiction of a lot of this book, and that is paranoia. Because it's this scene right here, and then there's another scene where he calls Foggy, and he's talking to Foggy on the phone, I think in the like hotel or motel or something, and he picks up the phone and he goes, "I'm on to you, Foggy," or something like that. And you're like, what is happening? Why is Matt acting like this, right? But yeah, no, you're totally right. I think it's said that if you don't get enough sleep, you can technically, like, your body goes into a state of almost drunkenness where your decision making is like way off. Your ability to think critically is completely gone. You start seeing things like you're delusional. And so that just alludes to kind of Matt's current state. But yeah, paranoia, where Matt doesn't even know who he can trust. He can't trust Foggy. And
also kind of screw Foggy in this one. Roast before hose, dude.
Yeah, absolutely,
dude, for real.
But I like what you were saying, especially about paranoia, and think about we were talking about Kingpin and just how pragmatically he has managed to dismantle every facet of his life, but it was like he managed to make the man without fear paranoid. Like, you know what I mean? It was like to watch this breakdown and downward spiral. It's so well done. It really is, and you feel for him too.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying it was like you truly. It was like I don't think I've ever been that desperate in my life, but I'm going like I don't know if I would act any differently. I mean, obviously I wouldn't dress up like a vigilante and beat the crap out of criminals, but as someone who has empathy for other human beings, I was like, I don't know what I would do. I don't know how I would react to just have your life dismantled this way.
Yeah, but remember, Matt, he does snap on the guy in the hotel, the guy who's asking for his rent. He thinks the Kingpin sent the guy to kill him. It's like, what the hell? Yeah, he has lost his mind. And it's only been like 2 issues, if 1 issue at this point. It's nuts.
Well, and it's not even. I mean, like it's everything. It's the complete dismantling. You know, he calls Foggy, and when he tries to call Foggy to get help, his girlfriend that just broke up with him is there, so that's going to create doubt. His apartment that he lives in gets blown up, so then he knows at that point that Kingpin is doing something. So he knows it's Kingpin, and he knows Kingpin's reach, and he knows that Kingpin's out to just destroy his life. So now that's where he's got blinders on everything else. That is all he's looking for and focused on. And then it's like, well, he knows Kingpin can get to the best of them. So why wouldn't Kingpin get to Foggy? Like if Kingpin knows, why wouldn't he go after my best friend? And then how do I know this person on the train isn't working with Kingpin? How do I know that this cop coming to break up this fight isn't working for and that's all he can focus on. But you don't fully get the scope of just how much of a mental deterioration he's had until this page right here, because he calls and you think he's talking to Foggy, like you think he's having this conversation with him. He's like, I just beat up a cop, he's doing all this stuff, and then he walks away and he's not talking to anyone. There's nobody there. It's like it's freaking time and temperature. And for all you young kids like Maxi Poo down here that don't know what time and temperature is, like we used to not have smartphones and computers. If you wanted to know what the weather was going to be like, you picked up the phone, dialed a number, and the weatherman would have a recording that they would say oh, today's weather is going to be blah, blah, blah. Otherwise you had to wait till the 12 o'clock news or the 5 o'clock news. So
hey, I'd call for movie times.
Not movie times.
You've reached movie phone.
You've reached movie phone.
Oh yeah.
500 days at summer.
If you'd like to know what's coming out, what times are available for 500 Days of Summer, please press 1. And then someone presses it, and you're like, wait, what number did they press?
Why don't you tell me the name of the movie you want to see?
There you go. With Kramer.
Yeah. Good little Family Guy skit there. So kind of as we're watching Matt go into this spiral, we're continuing to watch Karen spiral herself. I mean, she's already hit bottom. She's definitely at the bottom. But somehow manages to fall even further. She kind of gets connected with a guy that's not a good guy, and she's trying to, utilize him in a way which is dangerous and risky to try to get back to New York. But we also see just, how despicable she's gotten. You've got this blind homeless guy in Mexico. It's starving and looks like a zombie. And she's over here stealing money from him just to try to get by and get something. And then not only that, when he then responds, she beats the snot out of him, potentially killing him. So you're watching two people and just their fall from grace. When we first see Karen, we've seen she's already fallen, but it's like, God, she can't get any lower. And you kind of just see her continue to go down those slopes.
Two people who are paranoid and desperate. That's where they're at.
Yes. Don't do drugs, kids.
Yeah.
Do you think that we could or would or should ever get a comic book accurate version of Karen Page and what happens to her in Born?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, we should.
Oh, should. Yes.
Yes.
I agree. Should.
Yes, because in season 3, what they gave us was a piss poor example of what we should have gotten.
Yeah, they tried to give her this hard Scrabble existence, and it didn't work. It's not even close.
No.
To the
I drank too much. What was it in season 3? Didn't she drink too much and accidentally killed her brother or something driving?
Like that. Yeah. One of 2 people she's killed she's never paid the price for. But
yeah.
Yeah, it was always one of those things, and they're kind of notorious for doing this. Or it was like, well, I did do this bad thing, but I somehow am not a bad person. But it was like it's like diet.
Frank Miller.
Yeah.
Diet, and it's got a little flat. It's lost some of its fizz.
Exactly.
I would say if the show, if Daredevil were still on Netflix, yes, there's a chance we'd get comic accurate downfall of Karen. I don't see them going to like a heroin addiction, and I don't see them letting her do. She might get some type of addiction. I would even see them having Kingpin get her addicted to something, but it's probably going to be something like pills. And I wouldn't be shocked if they have her at some point reveal Matt's identity in the show. I'm concerned. I'm concerned that they're going to have BB Urich do it, and I'm going to lose my mind if that's the case. But I think take Karen down that path. And Deborah Ann Woll was in an interview and said, like, we still have consequences that need to be dealt with Karen based on some action she's taken. So it looks like they're going to explore some of that in season 2 of Born Again, but we'll see. But yeah, I would love to see them.
I don't think she's getting an OnlyFans either. Okay.
No. Well, because sex work is like it's not.
It's empowering.
It's empowering now. So if she were a sex worker, everyone would be like, "Well, what's wrong with that?" It's like,
they go, "Good for you."
Yeah, they go, "Oh, Karen really has found herself now." It's like, well,
I could actually see them letting her give up her body for information or money. I just can't see them like having her film porn.
No.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is like Disney doesn't have the fan base or the balls, or necessarily even the talent to accurately, effectively, and do it well. Do Karen well, where she has, she's a total heroin addict. She's stealing from blind homeless men. She is what else? She's doing corn. She is sleeping with men just to have them take her to America. I mean, what else am I missing? There's so much more. She's already given away Matt's identity for more fix. Like that's stuff you can't and don't tend to see on television or in movies. So yeah, that's why comics is a very unique medium because you can do all that stuff.
And that's why a story like this is very, very unique and special because it's hard to find books like this. Yeah.
But it's done well to where it doesn't seem comical at all. Like
it has a very real world feel to it. And what's great about this, what separates a creator like Frank Miller from someone like a Tom King is that Frank Miller, when he breaks down a character, in this case, more or less kills them, he brings them back. He brings it back up. They are reborn again. Tom King, he just fucking destroys them. He doesn't bring them back. They're just laid waste in a pile of shit.
And Max, to kind of even counterpoint what you said, like you said, it's not done in like a comical way, but it's also not done in a completely egregious way that feels it. It doesn't feel dirty. It doesn't feel like we're you can still have a storyline and present it in two different ways where one just feels like you're trying to get shock value and trying to be like, oh, how extreme can we make this? And then you can take the more like narrative approach of like, look how far this person has fallen. And it leans more into that, look how far this person has fallen. Like, it's not like, we're popping tits out and, like, let me shove a Coke up my hoo-ha to make sure I don't give it. Like, you're not doing weird shit like that. And that probably is what Tom King would try to do. So.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Frank Miller has done that as well. He has no problem with being gratuitous.
No, he does. He's Sin City, clearly, he's done plenty of that.
Absolutely. It's cranked up to 11. But this, like I said, it's heartbreaking to watch. It's not. They're going, oh, this is just shoehorned in there, or no. This is. I care just as much about what's happening to Karen. Even though, you're going to be mad at her, you disagree with her, who's like, this is a woman whose life has just spiraled out of control. And this is, there are going to be repercussions of that. And I mean, and it's a hard read. It's hard seeing these panels, especially, so when this came out, what?
86.
Daredevil probably already, but I'm saying, but Daredevil was what in the first, like, what is that, 68, 69 when he first came
63, 64 came out.
Okay. I didn't know that he predated Spider-Man. But
no, he came out after Spider. No, he came out after Spider-Man.
regardless,
Yeah.
yeah, because Spider-Man 64, it doesn't matter. So you already have years and years of continuity for this character, right? And and Karen Page is a big part of that. And then to like take chances like this and have her kind of unravel in this way, it's awesome. It really is.
But the one key word I'd say for everyone, the word to remember for this story is baptism. That is the key word for this story. That's how we were able to get through this.
I would also say too, like even though Karen was around, there wasn't much depth to her character prior to this.
Correct.
Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. Before this, like you said, she would move in San Francisco. She'd become an actress, and she just disappeared from the comics. Yeah. And this was her big reappearance. And okay, I guess being an actress only got her so far.
Yep.
Want to make it pictures, don't you?
Yeah. Before we carry on, I do have to shout out Salty Traveling Sea coming in with $2 here for the hot takes and a cold beer. Oh, hey Josh. You can always count on me for the hot takes, and I love when Salty comes in and gives me shit for my hot takes. So happy to have you here, man. And then for those $2, let's come in with...
Who wants to hang out in a blanket fort with grown men in tiny underoos? Hello!
So, I mean, Salty, I don't know if you're watching the, Disney Daredevil show Born Again, but like, the comic and the show are pretty damn accurate to each other. I mean, we're seeing this almost one for one in the show. So I would really highly recommend you watching it, because there aren't any episodes that completely veer off from this story at all and have nothing to do with Born Again whatsoever. So,
like I said, season 3 is more Born Again than this latest Disney iteration.
Yeah. And honestly, the only thing they could really do to kind of mimic Born Again is if they dismantle Matt's life, because that hasn't necessarily been done, and if they show Karen kind of go through something, and we might get that, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, ultimately this was titled, or the show was titled Born Again because it's a popular title. There's brain recognition there, and when they originally had the concept of doing the Disney Plus Born Again, like they weren't really addressing anything from the Netflix shows, and like, no, this is our take, which thankfully they realized was stupid and stopped.
And they do this with like comic book movies and stuff where everything is kind of feels like a half measure. So like Civil War, even though it's a great comic book movie, it's nowhere near the level of characters and everything. They would have never done that. They weren't able to do it. They don't even have that many characters in the MCU. But it at least pertains to it. They're obviously just calling it Born Again just for the
keeping like I'm glad you had your keys at the ready.
Yeah.
That was great.
Oh, come on, brother. I always come prepared. You know that.
That's right.
No, Sammy, you're so right though, because that was actually the one that I was gonna talk about as well, is mention Civil War. At least Civil War has like similar themes, somewhat of like the comic, right? But like on a grand scale, Civil War the comic is like armies fighting each other. Like there's a much larger there are much larger battle scenes and all kinds of different things. And I'm still salty about this, and no one else cares about this, but I watched Civil War recently, and I still can't get this past me. But they gave Cap's line to some chick, like the "No, you move" line, gave it to some broad. Like that to me still makes me
whoa.
mad.
That is Peggy Carter's niece.
No one cares about her. I'm sorry. But yeah, no, I always get salty at that. I'm just like, man, what were you guys thinking?
I lost my mind during the preview for this when I only watched the first episode so far, which by the way, I kind of just want to stop just because like that scene where Matt Murdock in Kingpin are talking in the diner, I was like, okay, cool. Like I was like, I can get behind this, but they'll never have anything that'll be near as good. And that's just because the actors are as good as they are, right? The conversation itself is kind of like, well, if you get on a line, I might be Daredevil again. He was like, you be Daredevil again. We're gonna have. It was like, okay, whatever. But the one thing that I saw is there's like it was for a preview for the show, and Matt Murdock like walks up to his closet and he's like has all of his different Daredevil costumes in there, and I was like, he's blind, right? Like he's not gonna like color coordinate his outfit. Should I wear the yellow one today or the classic red?
I don't know, because in the 2004 Daredevil, 2003, 2004,
03.
03, he has all his money all organized by 5s, 10s, 20s.
How they're all folded and everything. I love that. I love that small little detail.
Yeah,
like
I
that.
actually enjoyed that.
So
Also Colin Farrell's performance in there, even though I didn't like that movie, I love him in that movie.
Yeah.
Colin Farrell is just peak.
Yeah,
it's so entertaining and deliciously cheesy and so not a good bullseye all at the same time. But...
Yes.
Oh, a little fun fact. So in that movie, when Matt Murdock gets the call from Maggie, the girlfriend, like, I know you're never there. That's actually Colin Farrell's sister that made that call.
Huh. Interesting. We're gonna go ahead and move on. We're gonna refocus back to the comic after a nice little segue there onto the show and the movie, which was slightly disastrous.
The show is worse than the movie.
No.
Yes, this show.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, I will take the director's cut.
Absolutely.
Over.
Director's cut, maybe. Director's cut.
You all have to go back and rewatch. You've got some cheesy ass lines in that. You've got the whole seesaw fight. Like, no.
Every time he like rubs his scar for good luck.
I will admit that the director's cut is better, but it's still not great.
It's still better than Disney's version of Daredevil. I'll say that.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
I don't know. The sexual tension of when Elektra and Matt are fighting on the seesaw in the playground. I mean, it was undeniable.
That is Elektra and Matt fighting on the seesaw in the playground is just as terrible and bad as Halle Berry in Catwoman with what's his name as they're playing basketball.
The basketball scene.
They're equally like they should not exist. So
no.
we're gonna refocus onto one of the best scenes in this book. And look, so there's a point that we're following Ben Urich's story, and he suddenly starts backing off of the story that he's covering of Matt, and kind of just like, because he's had his hand broken or his fingers broken. He's been threatened that if he continues, it's going to happen again. And he's well aware of what Kingpin's capable of. And, J. Jonah Jameson kind of calls him in and gives him this little like pep talk. And it's like, fatherly / coach, like type of like, listen, you do good work. And I've seen this happen dozens of times. And he just like, it's not something that you're typically used to seeing from J. Jonah Jameson. We're used to seeing him be this big over the top kind of, crazy, goofy, who let stop Spider-Man type of thing. And this is just a real honest, like, at the end of the day, you're a reporter for a reason. And you have a power here, and people rely on that. So I love this speech. Sammy, I know you talked about this, so I'm going to let you go first. Then I'm going to let Drew hop in there as well.
Oh yeah, sure. So one of my favorite things.
Let me pause you real quick. We are getting rated right now. We're up to 254 people between X and YouTube. It looks like Don and Gator sent some crew here. So thank you guys. But my lord, we got a ton of people popping in. Space Pope, Don Condon, and Gator send their regards. We have Frankador Games. Don and Gator told me not to come here. That sounds about right. Don and Gator send their regards again. Johnny, Barbara M, Scott, and Don, and Alligator say hi. Yeah, no, super happy to see you guys popping in. Thank you for coming in. Thanks for commenting. Awesome. Not and Croc told me to Not and Croc told me to leave. Uh-oh. Not saying that one out loud. I made that mistake once, and Don has never let me live it down. But yeah. Oh God, Don Gator, thank you. Gator, I haven't talked to you in forever, man. So hope you're doing well. But yeah, I really appreciate it. All right, sorry, I was laughing at some of those comments that I'm not going to show because there's a history.
Yeah,
there.
me too.
But yeah, Sammy, go ahead and talk about this scene and what exactly you love about it and why it resonated with you.
Well, I like how you put it before, where that's usually not the Jonah Jameson we get, but there are times throughout the comics where like his true character kind of shines through, and or whether it be something to protect Peter, or there's something, but you realize he is a man in his position because like he's good at what he does, and then just having this conversation with Ben is so awesome, where he's going, it's like, hey, I've seen this 1,000 times. It was like, you're not doing this because it just pays the bills. There's plenty of other jobs that you could have. You do this because we do it because it's the right thing to do. We do it because it needs to be done. And it was like, hey, sorry about your hand, but you're gonna get over this, or this isn't the right this isn't the right occupation for you, but we both know that this is the right occupation for you, so you're gonna do it and you're gonna handle it. And it was like, even just the way that it's shaded, you can see like the blinds from the city like across his face, and it's just I love it. I just love it to death. This is one of the things, I think this might actually be my favorite part in the entire book, is really this, where you're getting a character like this really kind of shine through, and just showing Frank Miller's understanding of who this character is. And don't get me wrong, I love bombastic, Jonah Jameson as well, but I was like, there has to be like this wholesomeness about him as well, where you go, well, no, he runs this paper for a reason. And
before we get to Drew, just real quick, I do want to highlight Don coming in with Our Hilts Hurt Micronation Raid. Thank you again. I appreciate you sending all of your sheeple this way. And I think it's awesome. We got a good laugh with that. But if you like, gosh, what is that gay show you watch? I can't even think right now. Game of Thrones. Don does a lot of coverage for Game of Thrones. Go check it out. It's good stuff. Always hilarious and up to some shenanigans. We also yes, despite my terrible, but I'm not wearing a fedora, so that's all thanks to you. That is all 100% thanks to you. But we also have Sigma Comics, HH himself, coming in with $5, coming in with support this wonderful team. Great guys and very knowledgeable. Let's not forget Klaus Jansson's vital contributions to Daredevil. He's on our next book. Hell yeah. Kudos on getting Klaus, and completely agree. Like the work that he's done and delivered just should not be overlooked, and sadly is overlooked sometimes. Yeah. But HH, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Dallas in the near future, and helping you, supporting you, and doing whatever I can, and looking forward to the new books. But for the $5, we are going to come in with this. Bring me Thanos! Hell yeah, the good old days. Drew, go ahead and kind of share your thoughts on the scene. I know you touched on it lightly, but I'll let you go ahead and kind of tell what you love and kind of add to Sammy's thoughts.
Yeah, it's gonna be kind of really adding to what Sammy said, because if you think about as far back with Jonah Jameson across all mediums, whether it be the animated series, the live action TV show, the movies, any of the animated shows, is that you're always going to be like mildly laughing. You may get a smirk. It's cute, he's over the top, bombastic. But here, this is one of those rare times where you see him for who he really is, why he's in the position he is, and it's kick ass. How he just pretty much he just lays it all out to Ben, like what the purpose of this paper is, what the purpose of a reporter is, what your job is supposed to be. You're gonna do this. You're gonna wisen up. Get the hell out of my office. I love it.
Agreed. I love the roundness that it gives this character. Overall, like, we're talking about all the kind of lighthearted and over the top moments, but this kind of really just grounds him as an individual. And you're right, Drew. It proves why he's in the position that he's in. But yeah, great scene, beautiful art depicting the scene. By the way, they nailed the mood with this. But we're gonna go ahead and move on because we do kind of get a point to where, Matt's trying to make his comeback. He does go to Fisk, and I didn't add pictures of this, but he gets the snot beat out of him at some point. They throw him in a car, shove the car off into the river. It's going to be the death of him. And it turns out, Matt manages to come back. And we talked about that symbolism of baptism. But he's still not fully at his best. And he kind of stumbles on to home in a way. He gets to Fogwell's gym, punches the bag a few times, and then kind of like just drops out. And
you want to talk about? I'm sorry, real quick. I want to interject that panel when you see him try to punch the punching bag. It's so hard for an artist to really capture a punch with no weight behind it. And you look at that panel when Matt is trying to punch the punching bag, you could see Matt's got nothing. There is no weight behind it at all.
Yeah.
He is completely devoid of any energy. It is perfectly captured.
Agreed. And, we get introduced to this character, this nun here. And as the story develops, we learn that this nun, Maggie, has known Matt for a good while. And she kind of nurses him back to health, gets him back to where he can, I guess, recenter, refine himself. But the interesting thing here, and it's not like directly stated, but it's like 90% stated. Maggie is Matt's mother, and she's been absent in his life for so long, but has also been there and aware. She remembers him as a boy at the church and everything. And now, she's seeing him as an adult, as a man, and taking care of him. Max, what do you, because, so much of Daredevil is based on his father. And a lot of times we get heroes and explore their father figures. What do you think this does for Matt and Daredevil as a character by bringing his mother in? Not only in this context of helping him, but also as a nun.
Well, it's a good question, because the other thing that I was actually going to ask y'all is, do we actually think that this is in fact his mother?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's 100%.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure canonically it is his mother.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, he's got this. Go ahead.
Sorry, I love one thing. Okay, we could compare this to season 3 of Daredevil. I love it here more so because it's not completely like out there for us to know definitively it is her. I love how it's just one line of dialogue. Her heart skips a beat. And it's just like, that's how Matt knows. And it's like, I love that one line.
And that look too, that smile that she gives.
Yeah.
And it's heartwarming, really. And my mom says like certain things where like I'll say things and I can see my mom, like, she can't help but smile. And it was like they somehow capture like that on that little, he catches her off guard. And it was just like what you were saying about Matt throwing that punch, that you're able to get these subtle emotions
Yeah.
Just shows you how incredible the art is.
In terms of what this does for Matt as a character, I thought there was a really interesting prayer that Maggie offers up, where she's saying the world or the city or Hell's Kitchen or what, I forget the exact phrasing, but she says something to the effect of, Matt, his job is not finished here yet. Don't let, Lord, please save this young man, because he still has work here to do on Earth, and he still has good things for your mission, right? He still has people to save. And I think that is extremely powerful. And I think that the love of a mother and her prayers are what, Matt essentially is dead. Like, they are fully aware that he is either dying at that point in time or dead. And yet he still survives. I think there's another scene right after that, or another panel, where another nun says to her, like, that boy is beyond blessed, or like, God was looking after him that night, or something, like, because of Maggie's prayer. So now, in terms of what she does for the character in a larger sense canonically, I haven't looked into it that much, and I should do more. I should look at it more. I like thematically, and also literature as a piece of literature. I should analyze it more, but I haven't done as much as I'd like to. But I did like the prayer that she offers up, because I think that is very significant.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's not a ton that really kind of dives into her with comics, but I like the idea, because
pops in and out.
Yeah, you mentioned the prayer that his work isn't done, and it's almost like it's alluding to the fact that she's well aware of what he's doing and who he is. And it's kind of like, we always see Matt, and he's in this battle with his faith of what he should or shouldn't do, what is or isn't too far, and he's kind of in that struggle. And you have his mother coming in as this religious figure, and this prayer is essentially saying, like, no, he still needs to be a warrior. Don't take him yet. And for me, it's this affirmation that I think he needs to kind of, like, this issue is called Saved, and yeah, he's physically being saved, but he's got that emotional, like, saving that needs to happen so he can get back to doing what he needs to do.
Emotional and spiritual.
Yeah.
And she gives that.
And
go
ahead.
Sorry, I'm really excited about this story. I love The Born Again. One other aspect we haven't touched on yet is that in a couple issues prior to 28, when we see Kingpin dumps Matt's body into the East River or whatever, and I love that last page where Kingpin, he's going over everything. He thinks he's won, he's dead, but then the last lines of dialogue are, "There is no corpse. There is no corpse."
Yes.
So then we start
rad.
seeing, yes, love it. But then we start seeing Kingpin start to become paranoid. He took his shot, he missed, so now he's afraid.
Yeah.
Now he's on his heels.
Completely agree. Before we dive into that paranoia, because that's where we're about to go, I do have to shout out Don one more time. Our Hills Hurt coming in with $1.99. Hit that like button, sheep. Agreed. Go hit that like button. We reached up to like 260 something people watching. Right now we're at 241. Over 200 of you guys are over on the X side. I would love for you to come to the YouTube side, hit that like button. It really helps us out, so I would appreciate that. And then for good old Donnie boy here, I've already done the gay stuff, man, so I can't play anything gay. We'll give him this clip here.
What are you doing here? 5 words or less.
Out for a walk, bitch.
And you know what? Since Don brought in like 50 people, I feel like we can go ahead and give him one more. And if we're gonna do a Don clip, I feel like it's got to be a little abrasive. So we'll do this one as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I think I'd rather you just wash the fucking dishes and shut the fuck up! Fucking psychobabble bullshit asshole!
I laugh. I'm crying laughing every time in that scene. She is
Man.
brilliant in that whole movie. I love
If
it.
you've never watched Waiting, you need to watch that movie, especially
Fantastic.
if you worked in a restaurant.
Yes.
But no, Don, thank you so much. I really do appreciate the support, and I gotta come harass you at some point. We were talking about Kingpin's paranoia, and you're right. So he sent Matt into the river. They've got all these photos of the destruction and the damage. The car gets pulled out. There is no corpse, and that is the first kind of crack in Kingpin's plan, because it's like, okay, and he's kind of like overplayed his hand to a degree that he's well aware that Matt's going to know he's the one that's been. Oh, I mean, they just had a knockdown drag out, so he knows that Matt's coming for him, and
Kingpin all intents and purposes he gave him his best shot. Kingpin gave him his best shot, and he missed. So yeah,
what is Kingpin? Yeah, what does Kingpin do at this point? He starts upping the pressure everywhere else. So it's going to be kind of those things of like, okay, I missed my shot with you. You know, I'm going to start kind of putting the pressure elsewhere to try to send the signal of like, you know, I will take out everyone around you if I have to. And you know, we see the threat. So the nurse gets reintroduced. We catch back up with Ben Urich. He's really kind of in this fight of if he should or shouldn't with this story. I think he's kind of like feeling a little inspired by Jonah Jameson. And as things kind of start coming back together for him, he calls the officer that's in the hospital. And as he's talking to him, this informant that's kind of feeding him the information, the nurse shows back up and says she has a message for him, and then proceeds to have Ben Urich listen as she strangles and kills the officer. Listen, if I'm a reporter and I've already had my fingers broken, and then I like, yeah, I'm gonna stop, and then I get talked into continuing the story, and this is what's next, I'm out. Like I'm not even worried about myself at that point. I'm worried about my family. You know what? I don't need them getting becoming collateral damage in this. So
doesn't she even like doesn't she even like go into like how he gurgled?
Yeah.
Like she even like details like how he died, like the noises he made, and like how it's just it's brutal. Is when Ben Urich finally says Matt Murdock, you know, the camera zooms in and you get a real close up of his face, and he finally just says Matt Murdock. Is that after or before this?
After.
It's after. Wow.
Yeah, because he keeps
which makes it
revisiting.
even.
He keeps revisiting this, and he goes to a park bench, and it's almost like he kicks into just full on fight mode, like he's in fight or flight, and he's kind of in shock. But he goes to a park bench. Here, I've got it here. I could pull it up digitally too. But he goes to a park bench, pulls off the cast, and then says Matt Murdock.
He's
ready to throw
That's
down.
the one where he's like, time to either put the gloves on or take the gloves off, and he just freaking, like you said, throws down. So I like that.
I'm with Josh though. I think I'm coming up with a pseudonym, right? Like
absolutely. Like let's get some security going here. Even though our security probably is on this payroll. It's it's one of those interesting things, because we, you guys know I do a comic book club with my local comic shop, and we covered this book months ago, back kind of when we first started. But some people were like, yeah, I don't understand why he would get cold feet to begin with. And I was like, look, it's always, depending on your perspective and what your life is. If I'm single and I don't have any kids or attachments, I'm going to take way more risks. If I've got family involved or something at that point, I'm going to be way more cautious and way more conservative with who I'm pissing off.
And on top of that, in this world, there is a kingpin. You got to remember that.
Yeah.
And he sent a bullish nurse to break his hand. And it's like, that's just as a warning. And if he even says the name, and it's like, I'm going to shut the hell up. And like you said, he has a family, he's got a wife, everything, and he doesn't want them to get hurt. He doesn't want them to be left without a provider.
Well, and to your point, Drew, like he sent a bullish nurse, and this is Kingpin, and he has assassins and everything. Like that is on the totem.
And sorry, and piggyback what you just said, Josh. At the Bugle, there's a janitor who says, "Nice work, Ben. Yeah, don't say that name or whatever," just as a reminder to tell him, it's like, yeah, that's right, Ben. Yeah, don't say anything. It's like, oh shit, he really has people in like every spectrum.
Yeah. So Kingpin starts putting on the pressure. We do have Matt. He's getting healed. He's coming back. You know, Drew, you mentioned when he went and was punching the punching bag and he just couldn't do it. And then to kind of, you know, rebound from that, we now have Matt just knocking the piss out of this punching bag. And like
knocks
we've
off
got
the
our
chain. Love
yeah.
it.
We've got our guy back here, and this is kind of like that moment where you're like, oh, shit's about to get good. Ironically, you know, maybe not, because as Drew alluded to earlier, you have these first 4 issues that are so character driven, and I'm in love with it. And then as we start moving on, we start getting to, we still have some of the character stuff come up, but we also start bringing in some really kind of like off the wall, bombastic stuff. Not bad, but it definitely takes a turn for, I guess genre wise, it shifts a little more to be less character focused and more blockbuster movie action packed. But we do have Matt. He is born again. And then this pressure kind of from Kingpin shifts to desperation. So Max, I'm going to come to you on this one because you alluded to this earlier that, you know, what we see the nurse do later in this book, which we're here to now, gets scarier. So we've already watched her just, you know, choke out this cop and kill him, but now she's actually going after Urich's wife. And Urich comes home and his wife is hanging from the ceiling fan from a tie, and is just like, you know, moments away from suffocating to death.
And thankfully Daredevil finds her as well and starts, you know, kicking the hell out of her. But I was actually going to ask real quick, and I don't mean to derail, but the previous panel where Matt is saved, where he finally hits the punching bag off the chain, is there a moment for you guys that you realized Matt's back? Or like he is in full gear? Is there a panel? Is there a page? Is there a phrase? Like, because for me, there's the panel of Matt's eyes as he's underwater in the taxi, right? And you're thinking this guy's dead. And it kind of pans in on his eyes, and you're just like, oh, Matt's mad now. Like he is not dying this easily. But then again, I think for a lot of other people, it might be this panel where he's finally like, okay, he's back now. Like he's ready to go. But I don't know. I just figured I'd ask because for everyone, it might be different. But
honestly, I love this splash where he's standing over the collapsed punching bag. The punching bag. Yeah, I love it. It's just because in the previous page, you see him just going to town on it. You see he does have the weight behind his punches. And it's just like, when you see he's knocked it clean off the chain, it's like, yep, okay, he's back. I'm not messing with this guy.
Yeah. Does it bug you guys at all that we really haven't seen him in his costume all that much?
Not at all. No, not at all. No, and it's a Matt Murdock story more than anything else.
And that's what's fascinating. It's like, you know, right. Well, for a lot of TV shows, we're dying to see. Well, all we want is Matt in his outfit, or you know, Batman in the suit, right? And yet this, I'm like totally fine with this. I'm like, I could read 10, 20 more issues of this, right? Like I'm just digging it, and he hasn't really even been in his suit all that much. So yeah, it just goes to show how great the writing is.
Yeah, and it all comes down to the pacing and just how interesting the stories are. And if you're how engaged you are, like a story that comes to mind similar to this is Charlie Huston and David Finch's first run on Moon Knight, because it's for a while, it's several issues. You don't even, I don't think you see Mark in costume. It's not until like maybe like the first issue and like the second and the last issue of the.
Is that the one where he's in the mental asylum?
No. This is the 04 run that Charlie Huston and David Finch did. It's he's pretty much at his lowest. He's like he can barely walk. He's
in like a wheelchair or something.
Chair.
Right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because he's like, he's just begging to have his power back, and just it's a great run. It's kind of it really reminds me of this. What I'm getting at.
Oh, and before we go any further, there's something that we didn't touch on that I wanted to touch on, and I know I said it earlier. screw Foggy in this. So
Mr. Steal Your Girl.
Yeah, well, yeah. So Mr. Steal Your Girl, he's taking her out, and then everybody's, Matt's recovering, Maggie's taking care of him, and then he's like, wish I knew what was going on with Matt. No one's seen him in like 11 days, and I was like, dude, that's your best friend. What are you doing?
Yeah, and
you're like, get off of the rooftop, stop making out with her for a second, and start pounding the pavement.
I mean, to be fair, I think the last time Foggy talked to Matt was like, "I'm on to you, Foggy." Like, you're randomly in the phone, then hung up. So he's probably like, "Bro, what the hell?"
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure Matt's kind of swooped in and stolen some ladies that Foggy's had eyes for, because Matt's he's a player.
He gets more ass in the park bench. Love it.
But yeah, no, Foggy could have definitely been a better friend here, and is very much so an ancillary kind of background character for this story, but his importance is kind of felt based on everything else. But no, I am with you. Like, screw Foggy here. If Max did that to me, I would kick Max in the front butt. I'd be like, "Listen, you little hooker, help me out, man."
The next time I call you, I'm just gonna be like, "I'm on to you, F slur." No, I'm kidding. You bundle of sticks. I'm on to you.
I love it. Matt can never find a good girl like Max.
No, wait. Matt finds plenty of women. It's me. I'm the victim, Don. Come on.
Josh, I think you and I can both attest, like, we can disagree with that.
Yeah, we tried. We've tried.
Yes, and so
have
others.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Max,
you tried.
I'm
gonna do what a lot of women do, and I'm gonna say, I know my worth.
Oh gosh. What are you saying about my friends, man? I do want to kind of move forward. We did discuss this desperation. They're coming in. Max, you mentioned the costume and the lack, or the fact that we haven't really seen Daredevil since that first issue. But we do get to see Daredevil here, kind of.
Yeah.
So we got 5B. Yeah. So I the best person to talk about this is my TISM buddy Max. This is something that they kind of lifted for Daredevil season 3, but they honestly went a little above and beyond with this idea by having Bullseye dress up as Daredevil. But you've got our imposter syndrome coming in, and it's just another attempt by Fisk to, like, all right, you know what? I've been trying to tear down Matt. It hasn't fully worked like I wanted it to, so let's try to see if we can tear down Daredevil. And that's ultimately what this is. But did you like this scene or no?
It's almost kind of creepy. Like the smile that you get from him, and I think the panel before this where he's like standing over someone just brutally, like just like hammering down on him. It's almost scary that this, they find this guy from an insane asylum,
yeah,
just some freak, right? I like it. I wish. As a piece of literature, though, I wish I maybe analyzed it a little bit more and understood it more, because I'm wondering, like, is there something that we're supposed to see here? Like, Matt is fighting his old self because now that he is born again, he's fighting his older version of his own Daredevil, and Daredevil isn't what makes him who he is. It's Matt it's the character of Matt that really is the superhero, or like, there's something here. I just don't know what it is yet, but I did like this scene, and it is really funny to just watch this psychopath keep saying 5B every time he hits someone. So
I think you went like a little too deep with that, and it was kind of gay. Like, I really just think it was to dismantle the idea of Daredevil. Like, calm down, buddy.
Okay.
Max over here, like, it's a representation of Matt fighting his demons.
Yeah. I mean, if they can do that with Pride comics, I can do it with my Daredevil comic. Okay.
I am sure that are elements of that. This is one of those things that I kind of wish they would have explored a little more or played a little more with. But it's just kind of here for a scene and it's done.
Yeah.
and I think that's possibly why I like the fact that the show dove more into this, because there is a lot of damage to be done here, as far as Daredevil's reputation. So that's kind of my thing. I wish the book would have leaned into this just a little more, but there's already so much going on, and I think the only way you could have potentially done this if you had this character carry through to the end. But we don't see him fully carry through to the end because after this, we'll get to the other character in a second. After this, we get our salvation here, and I will hit the pause on this, the action aspect of it all, because Karen has spent this entire book trying to get back to Matt. Like, for her, that is her, like, he is her salvation, and she's doing shady means to get to him, and even in some ways kind of convincing herself that he's what's going to help. Like, ultimately she's got to help herself, and I think Matt knows this. But just seeing this scene, and then watching her break down because she knows she's the reason for his downfall and everything that's happened. And then he still kind of comes in with forgiveness and acceptance of her. It's such a powerful moment that can be underplayed and understated. But I think so much of this book wouldn't be what it is without this. Like, it's very easy to have Matt be like, no, like you ruined my life, and send her away, and oh my God, the drama. And I think it takes a lot more effort to show someone grace, especially when they have completely destroyed your world.
And I think it's, as I was reading this, rereading it this week and over this past weekend, there are so many storylines that are happening all at once. You know how a lot of comics will have an A plot and a B plot. We have like in the entire alphabet, you've got Matt's story, you're following Kingpin, you're following Karen, you're following Foggy, you're following Ben Urich. I think those are your main ones. So 5 characters that you're almost getting a look into their lives. So when Karen finally meets Matt, it doesn't feel like she was just, kind of relegated off to the side. This really is a culmination of the previous issues because you've been following them both so closely. And it's incredible how Frank was able to do that, because I feel like any other book would have spanned across like 20 issues and it would have been completely decompressed. But we're getting like 7 issues here of like just dense character moments. And this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, incredibly concise. I and also fuck Foggy.
Yes. And what's great, I brought it up earlier when we talked about our initial impressions of this, but I love it's just that forgiveness here. You have, not only has Matt been reborn, but as she was his Judas, he's forgiven her for her sins. He's forgiven her for her transgressions, and that shows you just how powerful this story is, and just how good of a soul Matt has.
Yeah. Well, and Drew, I think it even kind of plays into what you're talking about. Like, when he gets pulled out of the river, or when he gets out of the river, and then his mom finds him, that time with her was a spiritual and emotional healing for him. But it's like, yes, she's there from a faith aspect. Yes, she's there to kind of help him physically get better. But, Matt's lived his entire life with this understanding that his mom left. His dad was taken from him, but his mom left, and I don't know if it's something that he ever fully explored, but then to kind of have him have this discovery of his mom and who she is and what she does. And then also realizing like, no, she was actually there for me as a kid too. I just didn't realize this was my mother. I think in some ways that maybe took something like some burden off of him, even though it's not blatantly stated. It's like, someone's carrying this with them. Like there's just something that you live with, knowing.
I guarantee he not only has he been reborn at this point, but I guarantee at this point, much more now, emotionally and spiritually, he is much more whole than he was before, knowing that she's there.
And what a commentary on just like us as individuals. Like, he is by far materialistically, and what the world says would make us something special or who we are or matter. He's the lowest he's ever been in that regard. And he's the most fulfilled in many ways that he's ever been. You know, so it's and again, this isn't laid out in text. It's just like, here you go, this moment happened, and you're there to kind of take it in and infer it. Like, I'm so glad Frank wasn't heavy-handed with this, and the fact that this is a silent scene here, and she's just completely broken, but also like tears of joy in some ways that, like, you know, and it's one of those things that I don't know if you've ever done something, you know, whether it was intentional or not, that hurt someone, and you've carried so much shame, and then you worry, like, how is this person ever going to forgive me? Because it's one of the people that you really care about. And when they do, that just emotional relief, that weight that just completely gets thrown off of you the moment they do, there's nothing like that in the world. So love this scene, love this panel. There's a reason this panel is the image on the back of the book. Like, it's, you know, just it carries a weight.
I thought you were talking about us when you said you loved the panel. I was like, oh,
well,
that too.
There is one other splash page that I think may surpass this one, at least in my eyes, because it's one of my favorites. But yeah, I mean,
I'm gonna pull it up, but I wanna.
It's the last PowerPoint slide, or it's the last slide that you have in the entire. Yeah. It is that one. Yep. Mm-hmm. That one to me trumps this one. However, I said Trump. I'm sorry, triggered. But this one I think is really emotional and really impactful too, because even the artistry, Josh, you had alluded to weight, and you can see Karen is almost. She's like hanging off of Matt. You know what I mean? Like, Matt's kind of holding her up here because she is so sad, but also relieved in this moment that she's just completely given herself to, like, I'm finally here with you, and I'm so sorry, but I'm also relieved that I'm here with you, because she knows that she can now be safe. But what an upstanding person that Matt is, and someone that we can be aspire to be like, and someone who we would hope to live up to, as this person who has lost everything in his life and is still willing to forgive her for all of, you know, these transgressions and everything.
Do you guys think you could have forgiven her?
I don't think that's a tough one.
I mean, it's technically not. She didn't do all this shit to him. You know what I mean? So,
well,
she might have set it in motion.
Yeah, she set it in motion.
Yeah. And I mean, the intention behind it was just, I don't care about you, Matt. I don't care about you, Matt, enough that I wouldn't sell you out, and that would be tough for me to get past.
Well, I mean, and that's the addiction aspect, where but the another thing too is, and not that this makes this any better, but like, and I'm sure there, you know, just what you guys were saying, there comes a point in time where maybe someone has hurt you, or, you know, and you have to forgive them, or analyze the situation at least and try to be fair about it. Karen's looking pretty rough here, you know. You know, so that might make it a little easier. Okay, you've been having some tough times too, sweetie. Come here, bring it in. All right.
Well,
you might see her and be like,
what makes it interesting at this point in the story is that where Karen is where Matt was prior, when he was with his mom. You know, when Matt was at his lowest. Matt is now gotten stronger now, so Matt is like more or less his mom in this instance. You know, looking after her. He's, you know, and just giving it back. And it, like I said, it's great. It's great storytelling.
Yeah. I like that, Drew. Yeah.
Well, as much as we have this nice emotional moment, get ready, because things are about to change. Because give me your we've got Nuke coming in. So this story takes a drastic turn for, like, you know, deep emotional psychological storytelling to, like, bombastic. We're blowing up New York City. We have this, like, like, testosterone capital T, spell the rest of it out in caps, underline it, put some exclamation points. We're
Yeah.
gonna
Put some
get
creatine in it.
Yeah.
And pump it full of steroids. Yeah.
some pre-workout. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some tren, like just dose all of it in here. And that is what we get with Simpson. And
He owns a couple tap out shirts, right?
that's right. Absolutely some tap out shirts and some American Fighter while we're at it. But man, Drew, like talk about just, you know, bringing in a different energy. Like Kingpin brings in Simpson, and God, like I love the seduction here of like this guy that hates America, and it's this madness, and he's gonna like try to you know, bring about proving that America's evil and he needs to be stopped. And then Simpson's like, you're damn right he needs to be stopped. What's his solution? He's going to like completely bomb and take out New York.
Well,
So,
this is the point. It shows you at this point, Kingpin is at his most desperate,
right.
and he's trying to draw Matt out. He's trying to be clever and careful about it. It's like that didn't work. Fuck it. I am mowing down Hell's Kitchen to get. I'm going to exterminate it to get Matt out.
Yeah.
And
No, the guy's the walking embodiment of scorched earth, right? Like,
yes.
Oh yeah. And the dude
name
has
is Nuke.
Yeah, his name is Nuke. He has no regard for any other life around him. Like he is just cleaning house. Also, which none of these, I'm mad now because none of my images show it. But he's got the American flag on his face, which I'm completely convinced is a tattoo because he's got it on the plane at one point. And I'm like,
yeah, I'm pretty. I think it is. It's got to be a tattoo.
That's
also, I love that.
Love
like
that.
Captain America is just like shooketh.
Drew, what page are you? Sorry.
This is 232. It's the last page before Armageddon. I love that splash page. Not that one, but yeah, just in the fire. It's like finally got the devil. He's back.
Yeah,
he's back. Yeah, but
dude, the black and white.
Yeah, love it. It's the original pencils and pen and inks. I love it. You see all the corrections, the errors.
You've managed to pull something out that's made me jealous every single time I'm on the show. So there you go.
Drew has the tendency to do that. Drew and Joe Corallo, like Drew's got really cool shit, Joe's got really cool shit, and then Joe's got the most obscure stuff you've ever seen. And then you're like, so there's this really like old, hard to find book about that. He's like, oh yeah, I've got it right here. And you're like, go away. I don't like you anymore. But yeah, Nuke just comes in like balls to the wall, guns a-blazing, and it's a big enough assault on Hell's Kitchen that it catches the eyes of the Avengers. I called them the douche Avengers here because I've always hated Iron Man in this moment. I'm like, just let Matt have his moment. But yeah,
so real quick, the captions in this, not just the dialogue, but I love what Frank says. He says,
"Yeah,
a soldier with a voice that commanded God, and does. Suddenly it's raining so hard it hurts. Everyone who can falls silent, except Matt."
Yeah,
I love that stuff. Just those descriptors for the Avengers.
Yeah. I liked seeing the Avengers. I'm with you, Drew. I love the captions. I think the selfish part of me really just wanted to see Matt take it to Nuke here. And then the fact that Tony steps in is like, that man is ours, on federal authority, stand back. Because it's also, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of like, bro, you could have come in and been like a little more team player here, but you wanted to whip it out into a measuring contest and try to show your authority, which I get it. They're the Avengers. This is a soldier.
That's Tony. Come on.
No, no, I know. But so they come in, they end up taking Nuke in, and you would think this is going to be the end of everything we see with Nuke, because they're trying to give him the whites. They're trying to get him to come down. And he's not going to have it. He manages to get away, and he just starts popping some red pills, which boosts his adrenaline and everything else. But he just like shoves a bottle down pretty much, and then gets right back out into the chaos. And it ends up taking Cap and Matt together to eventually stop him. But one of the key things here is Matt is desperately trying not to have Nuke die because he needs Nuke. Like Nuke is what's going to clear Matt Murdock's name. So, you know, some potentially questionable decisions were made here. And I'd kind of like to hear y'all's thoughts on how this kind of unfolds with Nuke. To wrap up, I guess I should say.
I like it to a point. It feels like very, very on the nose and just very. I mean, I guess, but it is what it is for the time when it came out. But I do like it from the angle of Captain America, where he doesn't like to believe that the government is responsible for someone like this. But then he does his research and he discovers, oh, the government was trying to do another Operation Rebirth. And Nuke was the only one to survive those experiments. And it's like, oh shit, the government would go that far to do this. So it's something they've done with Cap in the past where he doesn't like to believe it. It's like, oh, they did do it. Maybe I shouldn't trust my government. Maybe the government isn't as nice as I thought they were.
Yeah.
But it's fine. But I love the action sequences in this. How well they're illustrated. They're beautiful.
I will just kind of throw this in here too. It's also another moment of really seeing one Kingpin's reach. Like we've already seen he's got people in the IRS that can start like audits and everything. But the fact that he reaches so far and has such a grasp even into the government that he can get a top government like military executive official to get a guy and just like yank him to come do some like Kingpin business is wild. And then so you got Nuke here. I love when Cap looks into things and he goes to meet back up with Matt, and Matt's in his apartment and he knows Cap is there because he recognizes the heartbeat.
Yep.
Such a great moment. And also just a testament to how Matt feels about Captain America. Like he respects him and reveres him enough that he's like, right away, I know who this is and I'm going to you. But yeah, ultimately in the chaos, they one of the choppers starts shooting and they do hit Nuke. And instead of trying to get him to the hospital, Matt tries to get him to the Daily Bugle. So Urich can get the confession. And it doesn't happen. So, Sammy, did you like this approach, or did you wish something else would have potentially happened?
No, in juxtaposition what had like transpired before with what Fisk was doing prior and all that stuff going with Karen, I was like, this is an insane like gust of fresh air where we're like, yeah, it's still a comic book, like let's get to a little bit of that craziness. You have this absolute lunatic. Who better to go against Daredevil now that he's Daredevil again? I think it's great. It's Banoonies. I especially love because sometimes some bad guys will like infiltrate. It was like, no, he's just mowing everything down. Like when he's going after Foggy, it's awesome. And he's an interesting character. And they were supposed to kill him off here, and I'm glad that he's made subsequent appearances afterwards, because I mean it's comics, no one ever really stays dead. But he also too, I think I really love the moment where I said Captain America is just shooketh, right? Where and he's a like a dark reflection of Captain America, where it was like, this is so it's cool that it's explored. Also that little thing where Iron Man shows up, I love that look where the armor's a little bit bulkier. So yeah, there's a lot to offer here still, and it just shows the range that Frank Miller has, where it was like, hey, if you want in-depth and emotional, I can give you that. I can also give you banoonies. You guys like banoonies? We can go crazy.
To your point about Nuke essentially being a dark Captain America, it's one of those things that yes, and you see how unhinged he is, and that's what you see at first. But as he's kind of getting beat down and defeated, when he comes into contact with Cap, and like Cap's like trying to lift him up, and he's like, "Oh, point me in the direction," like he's ultimately, what's unstable about him isn't his fault. It's what the
Yes.
government's done to him and the drugs, and he's ultimately just trying to be a good soldier. And I like that they put that in there because it gives you just that little bit of a like, hey, there's more depth here than you're realizing. So I did like that moment of kind of adding that there. But yeah, Nuke does pop up a few other times in Marvel. He hasn't been a huge character, but he has, I think, in Wolverine and some other stuff, he's shown up.
Yeah, I think he showed up in like Origins or
that was the Steve Dillon and Dana Way run, I think. Wolverine. Yeah.
And hey, you know what? He popped up in Jessica Jones season 1 and for like 2 episodes in season 2. Didn't you love that, Drew?
Oh, totally. I loved it almost as much as Ta-Nehisi Coates' Captain America run when Nick showed up. Because hey, wouldn't it be a Ta-Nehisi Coates comic without an evil white guy?
That's right. We are Max, before we move on to talk about the wrap up of the story and the epilogue, is there anything else you want to cover concerning Nuke?
No, I was actually going to ask, you guys had said that there's this portion where it talks about he just wanted to be a good soldier. He just wanted to do what was right for his country and was, following his orders. Does that make him a sympathetic villain, quote unquote, as we know them, right? Because back in the 80s, a sympathetic villain may have been a little bit different than what we know to be a sympathetic villain, which is like, oh, well, she was a communist and she killed thousands of people and burned their homes to the ground, and she definitely wanted to take back all these homes after the blip, but she's really the victim here.
Well, I think the difference here is that with Nuke is that I don't want to say he's simple-minded, but he really is easy to suggestion. He's really really easily swayed. And maybe that's due to the drugs. Maybe it was due to before the drugs. But as we see him come down from the drugs, we really just see, oh my, this guy is. It's just sad. He's a pawn. This guy is literally a pawn.
Yeah.
Oh, he's programmed.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it really is. Whether it be that general in charge of the program or if it's Kingpin, they're really the bad guys. I mean, this guy's just. It's even Murdock feels bad for the guy. It's like, yeah, he's just a pawn in this whole damn thing.
It's funny that you said, can you sympathize with him? You can to an extent, but it was like it doesn't matter when you get to a certain point, because even obviously the best example of this would probably be Frankenstein is ill-treated as he was. He became a monster at the end. It was like, so no, it doesn't matter what the government did to Simpson and all he eventually got to a point where he becomes irredeemable. You can go, oh yeah, he had a rough break, and I was like, the guy's like mowing down Hell's Kitchen. There's you can't argue like, well, he the government kind of messed with his head. I was like, that might be so, but that there's a limit.
Because I always have that struggle with Bucky, especially in the MCU films, where you almost feel, well, you do feel bad for Bucky, and he's like killed tons of people, but he, like, you see the pain that he has to go through every time they reprogram him, and it's just heartbreaking and gut wrenching. I think.
Yeah, but to my point, at the end of Civil War, Tony looks, he goes, I don't care. He killed my mom.
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah. Well, he says, yeah, do you even remember them? In Civil War as well. And Bucky says, I remember all of them. And you're like, damn.
Yeah, it's haunting.
That's yeah.
Yeah, the idea of, is he innocent or not? Should we feel sorry for him or not? It's one of those things, like, I can't feel sorry for what he's done, but I feel sorry that this has happened to him. And it's even kind of like a real world commentary on, like, as a country, we've done things that we should not have done. Like we're not always the hero like we like to paint ourselves out to be. We've done some shady and questionable things. But it's like, who do you get mad at? The soldiers that are carrying out the orders, or the bureaucrats and everything that's making this happen. At the end of the day, and a lot of times, you don't know fully the context of what's going on. There's so many stories about, like, hey, the information we were giving was this and this, so we thought we were doing the right thing. So
No,
yeah,
that's a good point.
and it's complex, and I think it's meant to be complex, and I'm glad. Like, this could have easily just been a surface level character, and I'm glad you just had those few little lines, right, in distinct moments to kind of really shade him in a different light. But that specific page of, I mean, you've got the general that's clearly up to no good, the one that was hired to get this guy in. He's telling Nuke, like, hey, you're not in any trouble, we're just going to get you back. These Reds, they get you pretty hyped, buddy, you're a little wild. But it's really that scene with Cap where Nuke is like, leave me, Cap, I'll hold the line, and Cap's like, on your feet, soldier. And then you've got the dialogue, not the dialogue boxes, but the narration talking about being a good soldier. And it's just like, oh dang, just these three quick lines just kind of really hit what my interpretation of this person wasn't completely accurate. I'm not going to say it was wrong, but there's more here than we initially thought. So good storytelling there. As we move on to kind of wrap up the story, Matt, our heroes are successful. Kingpin does fail, but he's still kind of at large doing his thing, in his own Kingpin way. And we do get to see Matt and Karen kind of like start rebuilding their life. It is rather fast, but do you feel like it's fulfilling?
It is. I find it very fulfilling. They've completely healed at this point, or are still healing. But at the end of the day, I look at this and I'm like, oh shit, Matt and Karen are pretty much broke. Matt is a short order cook, and it's like Frank has set up the next team for failure pretty much here. Like, good luck. You have fun with this. But we learned that Anna Cindy, she did a bang up job. Eventually. But yeah, it's one hell of an ending. It's like, oh shit. I mean, they're together, and he's a cook, and they're happy. They're getting by.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to see a little bit of a little bow on top after seeing like death and destruction.
I think Frank knows, as readers, we've earned that.
Yeah.
We deserve that after everything we've gone through, as well as this character. We've seen them, pretty much die, get, baptized, reborn, and he's content, he's happy, and the reader, which is Matt and Karen, have earned this.
But you also go into this knowing, because like looking at them here, even you still know they've been through so much that they will never be the same people ever again. Like from this moment forward, they are changed. They're completely different people. And so Frank Miller, Annie Nocenti, whoever takes on the mantle later, who would later be even Kevin Smith, I think, wrote for Daredevil a little bit. They have to put this into context of these things happened to Matt, back in the 80s. So we kind of have to keep that in mind, because since then, once this happens, Matt will never be the same, and Karen will never be the same. So, but yeah, no, it's I didn't mind the nice little, and they lived happily ever after. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even, pull the happily ever after. Like he very much leaves it like, all right, like I'm giving you somewhere else to go with this, and very much have fun.
Well, and what's funny here is that on the very last page of the run, at the very bottom of it, is clearly it's a note from Frank to Joe. I'm not sure who Joe would have been, either probably the letterer or maybe an editor. It says, no blurb for next issue down here at the bottom. So I guarantee you,
Oh.
Frank wanted to leave that the end right there.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. I like that. Look at that.
Very
Look at
nice,
Drew
very
coming
nice.
in with all the you know,
The knowledges.
the
He's got the knowledges.
the informations.
The informations.
Information.
Depending on what, if you read this in a collected form, depending on what collection you have, you might be going, wait, what do you mean you're ending the story here? There's another issue after this. And it's actually issue 226, which takes place before Born Again. And I feel like they were kind of like, oh, well, it's Frank that wrote this, so we should include it. But it kind of doesn't really flow for the story if we put it where it's supposed to be. And, but we will kind of segue and not include that because honestly, it doesn't fully play into this. So
No, it doesn't.
you can hate me if you want to, but I'm not covering it in my discussion for Daredevil Born Again.
It's a gladiator guy who steals some jewels. Okay, it's fine. No
Yeah.
one needs it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I do want to take a brief moment just to kind of walk through, because we did this, in our discussion with Batman Year One, but David Mazzucchelli, where he may not be the best artist in terms of, maybe the look of the characters at sometimes or whatever, the dude tells stories like nobody's business.
Josh, I will disagree with you there real quick. I mean, I firmly believe David Mazzucchelli, he is one of, granted his body of work is smaller, but I think with what he's done, he has shown you how to draw a superhero and how you draw a hero. And he nails it in these books of Daredevil as well as in Batman. How he draws Matt Murdock and Daredevil, his body, I'm like, that's a fucking superhero.
Yeah, no. I like David Mazzucchelli. What I'm saying is, like, especially if you look at this third or this last, page over here where you've got Maggie's face and it's not like the most detailed. I've heard a lot of people comment like, "Oh, it's not as good because it's not."
I'm going to argue against that because that goes into his art style. Because
I agree.
Because this style that we're seeing, the figure of Matt Murdock, that's much harder for him to do as it is compared to like the style with him and in the bed with the nun. Like that's more akin to his style. If you look at his rubber blanket stuff, it's more like that. It's nowhere near what he did here in Daredevil.
One of the things I talked about in Batman Year One is I love the world building and how so much of his artwork feels real and lived in, but also just the visual storytelling that he's able to convey, I think, is top notch. And I've always cited him as one of my favorite artists because of that. And it's one of the things that I loved about the unfortunately gone too soon John Paul Leon. I think John Paul Leon was one of the closest we've seen to David Mazzucchelli at really just kind of building this world and having realistic characters. But the 4 pages that I put here, I just loved this because it was showing Matt's downfall, and each one of these pages was the title page for that issue. And you see him, like, when we first meet him, the comforts of his home in his own bed. It's a luxurious bed. And then he's in like a motel and it's dingy and dank. And then the next issue, he's living on the streets. And especially that 3rd issue, I love those first like 4 to 5 pages where you see Matt and you've got whole sections of the page that are just black with text, and you've got close-ups of his eyes, and he's got tears. Like, it's so minimal but so impactful. That's and right. I think there was a joke at one point, like, how did you come up with this? And there was a joke at one point. I don't know if it was a joke, but it sounded like it came off as a joke of like, oh, we had to give David some time to catch up on pages. But man, it freaking worked just from a storytelling, because you've got Matt's internal thoughts plus Maggie's, like all these thoughts are kind of coming in, and him hearing his dad, and it's just top notch.
Yeah, and how ballsy of them to be like, yeah, 75% of the page is just going to be black.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, well, of course it's Matt, what Matt can see as he's thinking of, I can feel the needle, or I can hear my dad, or I can smell the medication, or I can, you're like constantly hearing his or reading his thoughts, but it's what he sees, which is just, nothing at that point. So, but yeah, very ballsy, and it works really, really well, and it's a great artistic expression of that. So,
Indeed. Any David Mazzucchelli thoughts from you guys that you want to bring up?
He's
No,
one of my
I think he's
favorites.
great.
Yeah. Just whether it was his run on Daredevil, his stuff with Batman Year One, his few issues he did of Shang-Chi. It's incredible because look at his body of work he did at the big two. It's not that much, and he did some covers, some interiors, but he'd stuck to his indie roots after that. And it's like he could have had his pick of the litter. He could have done whatever the hell he wanted to after these books, but he went indie. And hey, you know what? Good for him. He went out on a banger. He's got bangers. He'll be signing for the rest of his life. Batman Year One and Daredevil Born Again. That's a pretty solid damn career. That's like to have 2 Super Bowl championships. It's like, yeah.
I was about to say you could have like 2 Super Bowl championships or like 30 years of like almost making it to the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's like, which one would you want?
Yeah.
So yeah, he definitely made a name for himself and then just did what he loved, which was indies. But
yeah, absolutely. Well, we are gonna wrap things up, and we'll go around and give just a brief final thoughts, and then, as always, we'll kind of score this on if what we would rank this whatever out of 10. So I will go around to each of you guys, and then Sammy, I will go ahead and start with you. What are your final thoughts, and what would you rank this book?
Again, I think. For anyone, whether you're even just like dabbling in comics, this would definitely be something that I would suggest. Just there's no stone unturned in this for the dismantling of Matt Murdock and the fall from grace of Karen Page, the absolute beast of Wilson Fisk and the crappiness that Foggy Nelson shows. But no, I think this is quintessential reading for comic book fans. I really do. It doesn't get much better. This is I think this is the best stuff that Frank Miller ever did. And then when you have it's so hard to grade something like this because but yeah, I'm gonna give this a 9, which I think is a little bit higher than what I gave. I can't remember what I gave Batman Year One, but I think this is better than Batman Year One. Just out of sheer respect for what Frank Miller did for this character and brought to the table is just it's unmatched. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Tism Twin, what are your final thoughts on this?
Tism Twins.
Twins.
This is like one of my favorite hero's journey books. It's just so perfectly encapsulates like a man who is at his wit's end and is saved through the power of just divine intervention almost at this point. Yeah, faith. To take on a power that is so unbelievably greater than he is, and yet he never gives up and continues to fight forward, feeling no fear. Like, it gives you chills because you're just like, how can someone go through something like that and continue to fight? And that's what this story is, and that's, to me, why I love it so much. And as you have so beautifully displayed on the screen here, the perfect chef's kiss depiction of the Pietà, Michelangelo's Pietà from St. Peter's Basilica, of Mary holding Jesus after he's been brought down from the cross. Not just symbolic, it is a direct, like, 1-to-1. So but beautifully done, and I really, really love that. So I think I'm going to give and so this is the tough part for me, and I hate to do this, but I think I gave Alan Moore's Swamp Thing a 9, an 8.5 or a 9. But I think that Alan Moore's Swamp Thing is objectively a better written and better illustrated book. However, I like Daredevil Born Again more. So how do I grade that? You know what I mean? So my objective grade is I want to give Daredevil Born Again an 8.5. I think it's just a solid 8.5 where it's like, it's not the most perfect thing ever. You know, there are some points where you're not going to have to analyze or think about the symbolism behind something. Sometimes it's just like, hey, Frank Miller just wanted these two guys to fight, and it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
And that's all you need sometimes. So, but I do love this book, and I want to give it a 10, but I think objectively it's probably more of an 8.5. But ask me again in a week, and it might change. Who knows? But I think 8.5 is solid.
Nice. Drewski, what are your final thoughts and your score?
So we got to go back. Like I said, when we opened this up, 1986. This came out when there were other bangers that came out in the year 1986.
Ooh, yeah.
Dark Knight Returns, also by Frank Miller. Watchmen. This. Mouse. Man of Steel. I think Secret Wars 2 was going on. Big sales numbers. Mutant Massacre.
X-Men was doing really well, yeah.
Yep. But this, I see this as counter programming to all those books, to all those events. I'm going to go back to, like I said, I know I brought it up several times, but I got to go back to the Christian symbolism in this book. This is a lot of stuff in this that you will not see in the other mainstream books. You wouldn't really see this. Even in 1986, you wouldn't see this that much. And just how prevalent it is throughout every single issue, not just one instance, but several instances in every single issue. It is there. And it really is a baptism and a rebirth of Matt Murdock here, as so much as it is with Karen as well. And I love it all for that. This is a very tight, compact, impactful, emotional roller coaster of a story. I have read it, reread it every single year of my life since I was in high school. I always go back to it when I'm at my lowest. I love rereading this when times are tough. And it has stuck with me and will stick with me until probably the day I die, because it is just that powerful of a story. And I agree to a point with what Max said about Swamp Thing. It is a great. Swamp Thing is amazing, but I will say with unlike this, Swamp Thing had points in it where it really didn't. It had issues that had nothing to do with the main story at all. There's one issue where you had like aliens walking around that couldn't speak English or whatever, and it's like, what the hell are we doing here?
Oh, I think that's in book 2, right?
Yeah, it's in book 2. It's like, what the hell is this?
I'll take Nuke over the Monkey King.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. And for that, and after this experience, going back through it and rereading it, going through the art, this is going to give. I'm going to give this the highest recommendations, the highest scoring, and I don't think anything else we review is ever going to come close to this. I'm giving this probably a 9.9. It is just shy of perfect for me. This story is just that powerful. And that if anyone were ever to come to asking me, like, what comic book would I suggest they read, Born Again is up there with Batman Year One for me. Like, these are the two you need to read. Especially if you're newbie to comics, it's not going to scare you off. It's not so much. It's not too much. These will blow your minds with how tight, compact, and condensed they are. And I believe Born Again is the apex of Frank Miller's career, and it will be until the day he dies and long afterwards.
9.9. Whew. Nothing's better than that.
No.
I mean, a 10. If you have a
10 is, but
nothing's a 10. 10 is impossible. 10. Yeah.
Yes. This is a 9.9 for me. Any comic we review after this will not come close to this.
Wow.
I will come in and say that I'd share some sentiments. I will go back to Drew talking about 1986, and I feel like this is really one of the first examples in mainstream comics that we saw the creative team, you know, not being afraid to go there, not being afraid to show the violence, not being afraid to show the reaches of crime, not being afraid to show the downfall of a character that was somewhat beloved to a degree, in Karen Page, and really just showing them at their worst, not even being afraid to tear down their hero and maybe have them do things that aren't heroic. So I love that they committed to that and did that. I love that, like Max said, the hero's journey that we went on with Matt. I love the elements of and themes of faith. You know, I like how it's presented here, because you definitely have that Christian allegory there, but you also kind of have that faith that's written in a way that if for whatever reason you're not Christian or whatever it might be, you can still resonate with this. And that's not always the easiest thing to do, but this book handles it incredibly well.
Yeah.
And a lot of good here. For me, if I were looking at the first 4 issues, I would be coming in at a 9.9 as well. I think the following issues that come after this kind of drop it down a little bit for me. And I even understand what Max says. Like, in a lot of ways, I think this is some of Frank Miller's best work from a storytelling aspect. Some of the dialogue for me at times wasn't his best. I think he kind of refined his dialogue a little bit at some points. But, you know, you look at this and you look at Batman Year One, I feel like Batman Year One doesn't have the bombasticness and grit that this does from a character standpoint. So that's, you know, it's that battle that Max was talking about. I can look at this and go, I think things here are objectively done better, but I enjoy and emotionally resonate with this more. The Nuke stuff for me is fun. There's some nice moments in there, but again, it's not my favorite when reading this. Like, there are often times that I'll just go read those four issues and kind of like flip through a few things and be like, all right. So for me, I'm gonna come in at that 8.5 as well. For me, I think that's where this book lands for me. And again, I love it. 8.5 for me. I'm an asshole. I don't give a lot of high praises to things. So that for me is a really solid score. And yeah, this is the Marvel book that I revisit more than anything else. So that should tell you something. I revisit Batman more, but there's some bias there. But as far as Marvel, I probably pick up Daredevil Born Again at least every year and read through it. So
I was gonna say, yeah, because y'all's first Marvel book was X-Men: God Loves, Man Kills.
Yeah.
Which can tend to be kind of polarizing, and some people love it, and some people are just like, yeah, it's fine. But Born Again, I've never heard anyone say like, well, like everyone who reads Born Again is like, no, it's perfect, like it's pretty great, pretty damn amazing. So yeah, I'm glad you got another Marvel book on here. We need more Marvel. I know you're a DC guy, but
hey, we are rotating each month. Each quarter,
it.
we're covering DC, Marvel, and an independent. Although our indies right now are kind of leaning the DC route because it was Swamp Thing. But that actually brings me to at least announcements real quick. Sammy, anything coming up on your channel?
You know, this Saturday I'll have the 5th episode of Cavecast that's been getting some great reception on that, and we'll be discussing the cop and the butler. So it's you know, we're going to be talking about Alfred, and we're going to be talking about Commissioner Gordon and the importance of you know, where they are in the Batman lore. And you know, I just didn't think that either character would have been strong enough to talk like a full 2 hours on one, but you know, you can't skip them.
Agreed with you there. Yeah, go check out Sammy's page. I've got his link in the description, and then go check out Cavecast. And then Max, Friday, Drew and I are going to be back with you. We're going to be talking about the other Daredevil Born Again, specifically the 2 episodes that dropped tonight on March 25th, 2025, in case anyone's watching this in the future. And we'll have that full discussion and see what happens from there.
Looking forward to it. We've also got some good comics that we're reading this week. We've got Batman Hush 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 Hush
Hush Squared,
Hush Squared, Hush Dos, Hush Dos Equis, Hush Duolingo. Yeah, Hush 2. We've also got Solomon Kane coming out. Solomon Kane issue number 1. So that'll be really freaking rad. Because Patrick Zurcher is doing some excellent stuff there. We've got Ultimate Wolverine number 3. Will it still be the best Ultimate book that's coming out right now? Because every other Ultimate book sucks. Maybe we'll see. But yeah, lots of fun stuff happening this Friday.
And then Drewski, you are, you're just writing a few things right now, but you'll also be on the panel Friday. But what all's going on with you?
So I can announce today that the colors are done for Unholy Nightmare 2. The colors are officially done. Lettering is just about done too. We got a couple pages left. Then before we know it, we're going to be ready to launch the Kickstarter for Unholy Nightmare 2. And stay tuned for stuff later this summer. I got stuff coming up at C2E2 with Murat Michaels. Hush hush on that. Can't say what that is. But I got stuff at Dallas Fan Expo that covers almost done. Plenty more to talk about down the line.
Hell yeah. As for the channel here, next week we will be covering top 5 comics of March 2025. So Drew and I will be back to do our lists and prove that yet again we do not know how to count. And then if you're wondering what's the next book club book, well, the publisher, quote unquote, that we're looking at will be indies again, and we're gonna stick to our title at least for now, and we're gonna come in with Swamp Thing book 2, because I do feel like book 1 and book 2 really kind of work hand in hand together with some of the storytelling and narratives there. So we're gonna come in with this for our second indie and dig in, and I feel like Alan Moore and Stephen Bissett and John Toddleben just continue to deliver and really kind of build on these characters. So looking forward to both of those streams. And of course, in between, we will have some culture pop to kind of catch up on just some of the pop culture news. So if you aren't subscribed, subscribe. If you haven't hit that like button, hit the like button. And I've got to get these boys to bed. So thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Thanks again to Flaccid Don for coming in and giving us a raid, and to everyone on the X side. Thank you for watching. We're still sitting at 237 people total. So we've been hovering at that 240, 250 all night long. Super excited about that. But if you guys could, I would love you forever if you could just kind of sneak on over to the YouTube side and tell us we're awesome, tell us we suck, whatever. I don't complain. I take any kind of feedback. But until then, I will see y'all next week, and y'all stay nerdy.
Woo!
Get the fuck